Good morning. Welcome to Thinking is Contagious. I want to talk a little bit about what I believe is a contradiction, a hypocrisy, a fallacy, something that's being perpetrated right now on the American people. And a lot of it I base on what I hear on the financial networks every day, what I read in the financial print every day, on the financial sites, on the websites. And you're hearing a lot about China today, and a lot of big investors, starting with the hypocrite George Soros. Uh, Soros has come out and said that his problem investing in China is the fact that you're investing in the enemy of America, that you're investing in the enemy of human rights, that you're investing in a nation that believes in oppression in China, and that he thinks it will end up poorly. And he cites BlackRock's investments in China as a path to doom. And I call him a hypocrite because when Europe was going through their crisis during the financial meltdown, he shorted countless European currencies and brought many people and maybe nations to the verge of insolvency with those short positions. And he had no problem then with morals and ethics. So, it shows you the hypocrisy of this man, but it also shows you the hypocrisy of what's going on today. Right now, China is being condemned for this common prosperity mandate where Xi believes that uh, too few of a group of wealthy Chinese have too much of the wealth, and he wants to make sure before his re-election, and I don't call it campaign for re-election because we know in communist countries who gets re-elected. He's about a year out, and he wants to make sure that he dots the I's and crosses the T's. But this common prosperity that's viewed as such an evil um, by China, by the United States at this point, and you have the talking heads like Kramer, and you have the talking heads uh, on TV saying how this is terrible and it's anti-capitalism. Well, how different is it really than what's going on in this country today with way this mandate or this agenda that the far left has put on about equality, wage equality, and fairness in pay, and saying how CEOs make hundreds of times what the average worker, and clamoring for a redistribution of the wealth of this country, taxing the wealthy, taxing the rich, penalizing them for their success. How different is that really than what China is doing? It's not. It's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. But see, one is the agenda of the left, and the other is the target of the left. They're really the same thing. It's really the same thing. And to say that this country uh, is a capitalist country at this point, I think you really have to analyze it. And when you see a country that, and this was as of 2020, 40% of the GDP of a country is made up of government, um, is made up by the government, produced by the government via the wages and via the expenditures, and that government includes federal, state, local, but 40% of the GDP. And the 60% that's not under the government guys control of the government or production of the government, the other 60% is the money, the monetary part, and even that, I can argue, is controlled by the government in that fiat, in the Federal Reserve, in their manipulation of interest rates, in their quantitative easing, in their through bond purchasing, treasuries, manipulation of increasing rates, decreasing rates. How do you think that that is any different than socialism? You basically end up in a situation where, yeah, individual property rights remain like they do in this country. But if you really analyze communism, only Lenin and Mao were advocates or required under Leninism or Maoism state ownership or the national ownership of property. All other forms of fascism and communism, including Marxism, did not call for state ownership of property. On the contrary, they didn't want that. They didn't want that burden. They didn't want that liability. What they called for was state control of property, and that leaves basically ownership to the individual. But that title, that ownership, is a hollow document, that deed, because you really have no rights. The state controls through regulation. And what more regulation than in this country? The king of regulation. Constant increase in regulation. Only Donald Trump fought regulation. But what we have in administration right now is gung-ho 100% regulation. So when you couple this regulation and you really analyze what communism is, if you read the Communist Manifesto, if you really analyze what communism is, this country is very close to going down the path and in many ways has implemented the basic virtues of a communist society. Because yeah, you own your house, but more and more and more through regulation, through the government constant need for money, through taxations and fees, fines, levies, continue dipping into the pocket of the property owner. When you really look at it, even if you own your property outright, there's so many regulations, there's so many liabilities that benefit the state involved with that ownership that it's far from where the intent was when capitalism started of ownership of property. And little by little, as we let this Biden administration and this far left continue to gain control and continue to write regulation. And by the way, regulation is not the enemy, okay? Like the Biden administration is coming out and saying that they want to fight corporate America, the big entities, big tech. Regulation is written by big tech through their lobbyists, through their dollars, through their influence, through their buying of the politicians. And the only intent of regulation is to eliminate competition. So this very talk that you're hearing today coming out of Washington, D.C. about their defending competition is a smokescreen for what they're truly doing, which is writing more and more regulation, giving more and more power to those that write the regulation, i.e. big corporate entities. And at the end of the day, it's what we have said all along. These corporate entities are coming out and saying how they are pro-worker, they are pro-increasing minimum wage, they are pro more representation in boardrooms for minorities and for all people. And in reality, what they are pro is themselves, because they know that what is presented to the public is far from what the underpinnings of what's going on behind the scenes is doing, which is benefiting them. The money that's being paid out under all these social, quote unquote, social programs, social equality programs, through all these incentives and all these stimulus plans and all these $3.5 trillion proposals, all that money filters through the intended recipients, the poorer section, the poorer part of society, the majority of the working class of society. It filters through them, but back to the elites of society. Make no mistake about it. And this thing about the minimum wage, what we've discussed, and how they want to pay their workers more, they want to pay their workers more because they know what the plan is. The plan is to have far fewer workers. The JOLT number came out, over 10 million jobs available in this country. Can't be filled. That is not accurate. That's 10 million jobs based on the old pre-COVID economy that existed. Those jobs are not coming back. That is a false count. Okay? American society, for the most part, businesses are open and operating, and profits are record-breaking profits. Yet the unemployment continues elevated beyond what it was during the Trump era. Not that I think we will ever get there again, because that was a different era, far less technology, far more manpower required. But I think you're going to be hard-pressed to get your unemployment rate in this country below 5% from here going forward because of what has transpired. And if you don't believe me, look at Whole Foods. They're planning on rolling out 2 stores. They just announced it this week. They're planning on rolling out 2 stores with no cashiers. Everything completely automated. That is where it's going, and that's what we've been talking about on this program, is that's why, and I use Whole Foods here, but interject or replace it with whatever corporate entity you want that's out on their soapbox about how they want to pay their employees so much more money. The reason that they're going to pay $15 and $20 an hour to the guy to the positions that were originally paying $7 or $8 an hour is because it's not the same position. It's a position now that's going to require more management type skills, more expertise type skills. And the key here is that now $20 an hour job or $15 an hour job that they are being so benevolent in providing and lying to you and saying that they're giving that to the person that was making $7 or $8 an hour before. No, that person's not getting this $15 an hour job. And that is evident by the unemployment rate. And that is evident by the JOLT number, that you can't fill these positions because the person that's going to get the 15 or 20 is a different skill set. And that 15 or 20 is not going to come out of corporate America's pocket. And it's not necessarily going to come out, in my opinion, in increased pricing. I don't believe that inflation is something that is anything but temporary, transitory, because technology will prevent inflation from becoming anything but. But what I do believe is that money, that additional wage, will actually result in a cost savings to corporate America. Because just like Whole Foods is opening stores without cashiers, McDonald's will open stores, Burger King will open stores, corporate America will open stores without people, without individuals, with robotics, artificial intelligence, and technology replacing those people. So that those $5 or $6, $7 or $8 an hour jobs today, and if you use the number 5 at 8, that's $40, are going to be replaced by 2 $15 or $20 an hour jobs. So there will be no inflation. There will be no need to increase pricing. What there will be is less and less people employed. And the people who will get the most hurt in all this, and what people fail to see, is that individual, that level of the workforce that the left says they're looking out for. The person making now today the minimum, the $7, $8, $10 an hour job, that's the person that will not have a job. That's the person that will not be employed. because they are not trained to fill this new position that, yes, we'll pay $15 or $20 an hour, but you need a far different level of training. You need a far different level of experience and expertise. The lower end of the economic scale in this country, again, will be paying the price for the lie that's being perpetrated on the American people today about what is happening in this economy, what the left professes to be wage equality, representation, opportunity. What the left is representing that they stand for, it's all the opposite. The people most adversely affected by what is going on in this country today will be the same people that have been most adversely affected by what has been happening in this country for the last 60 years since the civil rights movement. The minorities and the lower socio-economic levels of this country are the ones who will see no benefit. As a matter of fact, they will become so addicted to the government backup, for government assistance, and it will be minimal. Okay, when you consider the amount of money that has been put into these stimulus, so quote unquote social programs at this point, which I've told you are not intended for the poor, they filter through the poor and will end up with corporate, the rich. Okay, when you consider that in lieu of those dollars, those trillions of dollars, for a few crumbs off the feeding trough, you can keep 40, 50% of the population happy. Bread and circuses, the Roman bread and circuses. You can keep 50% of the population happy with a few $1,000s a quarter and some tax credits and some extended unemployment benefits. It pales in comparison to the cost of the trillions of dollars that are being floated at this point under these social programs. Those will be replaced by these handouts. And what do? They get people dependent on the fish and people not wanting to fish, not caring to fish, and not even wanting to take the time to fish because they're being entertained. Bread and circuses, they're being entertained with the television, they're being entertained with the YouTube, they're being entertained with the telephone, the TikTok. Cheap entertainment, minimal substance by the government, and then those people will be told, if you want to keep the status quo, if you want to be able to be on TikTok all day, if you want to be able to watch YouTube all day, if you want to be able to collect unemployment, if you want to have tax credits, if you want to have, you don't want to have to go to work, if you want to work from your house, gig economy, if you want all these things, vote for us. We got this for you. It is vote buying with taxpayer dollars that is occurring here. It is communism light, what this country's going towards, and hiding behind a capitalist system of equality. That's not the way it works. That's not what made this country great. What made this country great is competition. What made this country great is entrepreneurship. What made this country great is accountability. What made this country great was the spirit of wanting to progress, of wanting to improve one's lot in life, of wanting to provide, and of wanting to be self-sustained and not dependent on the government. Don't tread on me. That's how this country was started. People who wanted independence, people who wanted to live and fend for themselves, people who wanted equality, freedoms, all that is being taken away by the left and by politicians in general, by politics in general, but more so by the left, because at least the conservative, the right, tells you what they're doing. The left lies to you and they tell you that they're helping you, when in effect what they're doing is stepping on your head. The the premise today that we're seeing, go back to where we started, that this common prosperity theme that the Chinese are professing and that Xi is so hell-bent on making sure is in the fiber of his country's economy is exactly what this country is doing. But the agenda in this country is one that the left wants delivered as a positive, and what is happening in China is what the left wants to be attacked as a wrong. If you really analyze what's happening in both countries, it's the exact same thing. It is the exact same thing. The delivery is different, and the hope is that you're not smart enough to understand it. We are heading down the path of a communist society. We are following the path of a communist nation. We are letting them influence everything that has to do with this country. And we have a leadership in Washington, D.C. that is incapable. Not incapable. They are capable if they wanted to, but they are on board. They have bought in to the mindset of communism. I'm not using socialism anymore. I'm saying communism. Read the Communist Manifesto, and you will see the alarming amount of similarities between what is happening in this country today and what that document contains. Don't believe the fallacy that in the Communist Manifesto that communism requires the property to be owned by the state. Don't believe that. That's Leninism. That's Maoism. What you have right now, you can own your house. You still can be a part of a communist society. You can own your farm. You can own your factory. You can own your business. But with enough regulation, with enough taxes, with enough government control, with enough fiat control, your ownership is hollow. You only have all the liabilities of property ownership, but the control and the benefits of the means of production, the true control, belong to the state. And that's where we are today here. Think about it. Okay? Thank you for your time. Have a good day.